we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Heavenly Father, we come before you at the start of this new day, giving thanks for life, for health, and the opportunity to serve through this station. We ask for your divine presence to guide us in all we do. Bless this broadcast, that it may be a source of inspiration, joy, and unity to all who tune in. Whether near or far, may our words uplift, our music heal, and our message bring light to those who need it most. We pray for our listeners, wherever they may be. Grant them strength for the day ahead, peace in their hearts, and success in all they put their hands to. Cover those traveling with your protection, and those at home with your comfort and provision. Lord, may everything we do bring honor to you and be a blessing to others. Guide our steps, bless our efforts, and let this station be a vessel of positivity and hope. In your name we pray. Amen.
Your voice, your soundtrack, your station. New Era TT Radio. Nat Radio.
Hey, hey, start it now. Hey, let we do it now. Step forward, I move forward. I step forward. Everybody, alle, 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 alle. It's time to get up and start moving. Alle, 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 leaving all your problems behind it. Alle, 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 alle. We pressing on to our victory. Alle, alle, alle. Oh, oh, yeah. I woke up this morning and I feeling nice, but the path that I chose comes with battles to fight. As long as I'm living, my future is shaping, and where I am heading, got no time for problems. Hold the weight on your shoulder, put the problems behind you. If you fall down, just get up and get your head out the dirt. And when they try to badmine you, and they talking behind you, don't let nothing bother you. Put your hand in the air and everybody, alle, 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 alle. It's time to get up and start moving. Leaving all your problems behind it. Alle, 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 alle. We pressing on to our victory. Alle, 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 alle. Oh, oh, yeah. There we go. Step forward.
Wake up, rise up. It's the Net Radio Breakfast Show, bringing you the energy, music, and vibes to start your day right.
I move forward. I step forward. Oh, oh, yeah.
Ale, ale, ale.
Yeah, that's the battle.
Everybody, good morning to you, and of course, welcome. Good to have you here. And if you're wondering where here is, it is New Era TT Radio, the heartbeat of the Caribbean, taking you above and beyond. Good morning, Trinidad. Good morning to Tobago, neighbors in the Caribbean, our friends who are streaming all around the globe on the www. So glad to be here with you. Hope that you guys had a good weekend. I'm ready for everything that will be coming your way. Alright? Of course, I'm yours truly, Sir Charles. As always, thankful for Heavenly Father for bringing us together for another day. And everything that we do, I ask Him to be a blessing unto you, dear people. Remember, this is your Get Up and Go as we welcome you inside our breakfast show.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Wake up, it's a brand new dawn. The breakfast show got the vibes turned on. From Maracas Bay to the Savannah line. Let's start the day in Caribbean prime. Oh, good vibes rolling through the air. The breakfast show, energy everywhere. We talk, we laugh, we make you think. Grab your doubles or your morning drink.
I'm waiting to see what happened with him.
No. Good morning.
Uh-huh.
Good morning, Richard. Good morning, St. Charles. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. And good morning, listeners and viewers all over the globe. Oh, look in there.
You're looking good. So good morning and welcome to the breakfast show on this Monday morning. You know, Monday morning is not necessarily the favorite morning of many people. It's like, oh, the start of the work week. But we are here to keep you company. So good morning to our listeners and viewers across Trinidad and Tobago, up the Caribbean and across the planet. Welcome to the breakfast show, wherever you are streaming us from, YouTube, Facebook, TuneIn, smart devices, or if you're watching us on Emily TV, on cable in Trinidad and Tobago and up the Caribbean. Welcome to the breakfast show. And of course, a special good morning to my co-hosts, Wendell and Sir Charles.
Good morning, Richard. Good morning, St. Charles. I still ain't get it
Morning,
right. I still have to look like, hello?
How are you going back so far now? Yeah.
No, I raised the height of my laptop, but I'm still not getting. Richard is talking and his mic is not on. I don't know if he realizes that.
No,
I'm not
but
getting my body.
yeah, Richard, you're not here, Richard.
Yes, my mic is on.
He's
No,
on
we
yet.
won't hear you at all.
What?
No.
For a while, that's how we won't hear you.
Didn't you hear me, Sir Charles?
Yeah, I heard you. I heard you. I heard it from the time that you came on. When you thing. There was a little 2-second pause, and when they'll say you waited to see what happened, and then you started.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I was to see my coffee almost cascading on me, so I was like, "Oh my god!" So I just managed to click it when I said, "Okay," and I stabilized my coffee so that it didn't cause further disruption, and that was it. And here is the culprit.
All right. I'm gonna drop back the level, the height of my laptop and see if that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking like the horseman.
Because he had it good, and imagine he had it good before he came on and went and moved.
Yeah. You're looking like people.
Yeah, I think I put my laptop up too high.
You look like the what is it? The beheaded horseman. Or we were watching the head. You wasn't seeing the
I was only seeing my head, yes, for a while. Anyway, Good morning again, people. It's June 2nd. I have a very good friend who's celebrating her birthday today. I only celebrate, we only do June 2nd. We only do her birthday for June 2nd. And her name is June. Her name is Junan Asing. She is celebrating her birthday today. Happy birthday, June.
Happy birthday to you, June. Of course, it was my brother-in-law's birthday on Saturday. So I called him and I told him happy birthday. Mm-hmm. So Ron, happy birthday again. Well, I told you happy birthday. It'll be happy belated birthday now. That was the only a big birthday I had over the weekend. I have one later on this week. My nephew, his birthday is on 4th or the 5th. My brain is correct. Yeah, so his birthday is this week. I know he is pretty close to his father.
Right.
So
I actually have another sister, and a nephew who also celebrating her birthday this month. And two former spouses of mine, one who passed and one who's current. They also celebrate their birthday in the month of June. So lots of birthdays this month.
June is a special month for you, man.
I'm telling you.
It might be a month you should keep away from the child.
But it's a month I keep it away from now.
No.
I'm sure about that one.
Imagine that from before he can even answer. So what is your name? He had to say, so what much you born?
Yeah, I don't ask people how that is.
We ask the name first. Say, what much you born?
Okay, bye. Bye and bye.
Oh my God. But before we get into our greeting our guests, our early morning arrivals on the stream in the comment section, of course, you can comment whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. You can comment in the comment section, especially when you're early in the morning and we read out your comment. But before we get to that, we usually do our good news. Our good news today is a little different in that I have a guy talking about manners, so this is our good news for today.
Consider the importance of manners. Why should philosophy care if I say thank you, or if I let an old lady take my seat, or if I don't swear in front of children? These are as boringly commonplace as scratching an itch or tying a shoe. But for the philosopher Edmund Burke, manners are one of the most important things about modern society, and without them, things start to break down. According to Burke, manners are of more importance than laws, because upon them laws depend. Manners are the unwritten expectations that allow society to function, and they are the rules by which we cooperate with each other. Manners are everywhere. They're in how you eat in public and how you negotiate the family film at the weekend. And for Burke, manners are important because they hand responsibility to the individual and not to the state or the police. You don't have to hold the door open for somebody or help somebody with their luggage, but when you do so from your own values. If these were made laws, they would strip them of the responsibility that made them special and moral. Burke believed that manners reflect the virtues that political institutions need to function. Because without things like civility, tolerance, and self-restraint, democracies cannot function. We need to work with each other and we need to talk with each other. Today, we often assume that legislation and contracts are king, but for Burke, these are rigid and take away personal responsibility. All of which is to say that if you are polite, then things just work better.
All right. So that was our good news for today. I just decided to do something a little different and talk about manners. Because so many times, you tell people good morning if you enter a place and nobody answers you. Those things happen. Like people sometimes forget that being mannerly is important. I must admit when I walk down a room in the morning to get the newspapers, 95% of the people say good morning.
You know what I do when people do that? When I go in a room and I say good morning and no one answers, I say good afternoon, I say good evening, and I say good night. That's what I do. Somebody gets the message. Somebody will get the message eventually.
Or they just think you're weird, or they just think that's a weird man.
Well, they could think that. But I'm weird with manners because I too subscribe heavily to saying good morning, or even if it's good day, because if some people not sure of the time of the day, just say good day. I say morning. I sometimes I tend not to say good morning. I say morning. You know what I mean? But yeah, I do it all the time, and I have neighbors actually who would not even acknowledge you inside of this place. They will not look your way. You're driving by them; they're driving by you. They will not look your way. Sometimes they even walk in and they will not even say a word. I pray to God sometimes nothing happens to them. But again, I guess I'm not the type to ignore people. I acknowledge everyone.
Because manners and how you deal with other human beings is important. In terms of everyday life, as life as life goes on, goes along. So interestingly enough, we had discussed this at a time that in Japanese primary schools, their version of primary schools, they actually dedicate courses to manners, like getting up if an older person comes into a bus. Those sorts of values that were instilled in us when we were younger. I don't know how much the new generation is. I don't know how much they're taught those things in schools, but certainly getting up if an older person or a pregnant woman getting up to give you a seat, things like that. How you cross the road, littering, putting, general civility and the social contract that we all have with each other. I don't know how much of it is reinforced in primary schools in Trinidad and Tobago, but certainly it's reinforced in Japanese schools, according to a video that I'd seen one time.
Yeah, well, Asian people on the whole are very cultured, in terms of their tradition and greeting and so on. They're very cultured on the whole.
Yeah.
At least that has been my experience on the three places in Asia that I've been. And by the way, you see that statue behind my head now? I you notice I've changed my background, people. I don't have the wall. I wanted to brighten it up based on people's observations and my own observations. But that piece behind is a piece that I brought from Africa. It's called a Jinyami, Gyenenamy, Jinyami, and it's a Christian symbol actually. It means accept God, but it's a piece that I wear around my neck also. I don't know if you all have ever noticed it, and it caused a bit of disturbance at one point in time. But I'm happy to have them back. It's lovely artwork from Africa, Ghana in particular. You don't see it anywhere. It's particularly Ghanaian. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have it's an Adinkra symbol. They have it on lots of buildings in Ghana.
Oh, okay. What it means again?
Jinyami, accept God.
Accept God.
Accept God. Yes.
God is exceptional or accept God?
Accept. God is exceptional. Yes, that's what it means.
Accept God.
Yes. Not accept.
Right, God, that's what you would think it means.
Yeah.
You're saying it. That's why I sought to clarify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accept, yes.
All right. So let's get to greeting our people in the stream this morning. Wendell, take it away.
Yeah, let's go. Susan Jessup, of course, came in at 12:53. God's grace and blessings to Sir Charles, Richard, and Wendell from Susan, Suzette, and Mrs. Gemma. Alistair Hart, whom I met over the weekend. I was walking. What day was that, Alistair? Was it Saturday? No, it was Friday, the holiday. I went to Rumbox to pick up something from Harper, and he was just about closing up. And as I'm walking back out, this guy walked in the gate. And as soon as I heard his voice, I knew it was Alistair. I knew it was Sonny Sadford. And he greeted me, and he wanted a beer, but Harper had already closed up. But he was on his way to visit some friends and family, I think, in the West. So Alistair Hart, it was such a pleasure meeting you after all these years. I've always heard you.
I've met him before.
You met him also?
Yeah, I've met him. I met him once.
All right. So it's great meeting Alistair Hart. Morning, Alistair. Melissa from Charfleur, Marlon Motley from Valse North. He's identified where you're from now.
Good morning, Marlon.
Marlon, you not read Big Shot area anymore. I don't watch you. You living up by Rohan and boy. Yeah. Richard, I have nothing to say. Boy, did you see? Ozzy Bollido, Doreen Pierre, that's a name we've seen before. Donna Ramlo Chan, from Piaco, Marcia Rock from Orlando, Pearl Coddies from we don't know where, Robert Taylor, who left to go back to the USA over the weekend from Fernandina.
Okay,
hope he got back safely. He came online with me on Saturday also too. CJ from New York, Cheryl Seeley on the live, Carol Guevara from Central Trinidad, Wayne Ramsey from Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Richard Jeremiah, Mrs. R from
Trinity.
Okay. Sherman Kerr from Arima, Hazel Will, Felix Kazo, and Noel, Ingrid from Tucson, Arizona, Lambert Bruce from El Dorado, all right, Joyce Phillip from Maracascent, I think, Wendy Ann James from Aranguez, Patricia Defoe, Arch Nemesis, Cheryl Johnson, Robert Harper from St. Anne's, Margaret Thomas, Diane Payne. Okay.
Today's forecast has lots of clouds, with a high of 31 degrees and a low of 23 degrees.
Okay, who's it?
Margot. Yes, Carol, I was looking like a floating head. I still have to get the angle of the camera, the position of the camera just
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
'Cause I'm using an external camera now.
yeah. You gotta bring it down or kite up a little bit so there's a little space above your
Something
head.
I have to get it looking like Richard Owen. Richard Owen looks perfect. Julia Batiste, Carl M. Jack, to all his Rumbox still going. What do you mean every Rumbox still going? Where we going where? Wendy and James says, please extend birthday wishes to our daughter Simone James from her daughter Skylar Ann, her sister Sigrid, nephew Isaac, grandparents Frank and Wendy Ann. All right, so happy birthday to Simone James. Kathy-Ann Charles, Kathy-Ann Townsend says good morning. Rena Jennings from down there in Pity Valley. Yes, Donna, unfortunately. Nicola McNichols, yeah, she usually repeats good morning. I go through the whole sequence of the day. Ron DeSantis Jr., Gemma Brewster. What is that, Gemma? Michael Mapp says, good to be alive and well. Robert Harper says, what did he say? Where did it go?
Okay, sorry.
Odell Guy, Margaret Chow. Hi, Miss Chow. How are you? Nice to hear from you. And Kelcher Cambridge. Those are all our greetings for the morning. All right.
Okay, can I just add a few people to it? But they had Terrian, so Terrian is across the board. Also, good morning to Frank, to Kent, also to Luis Diaz, to Colin out there in Carenage. And of course, I want to say good morning to Mr. Patrick Billy, and of course to his wife, and send out some condolences also to them because his wife, brother passed over the weekend out in Texas. It's Clyde Small, for those who may know him. So, Mr. Billy and your wife, condolences to your family.
Condolences, Mr. Billy.
Yeah.
Carl Jack says he's coming by Rumbox on Friday. God willing, you'll see me there, Mr. Jack.
Okay. I was in a certain place over the weekend, checking out some at the desk with Karen, and all of a sudden I hear a voice behind me. So who that for? Where you going to put that? So I really thought the person was not speaking to me. I thought because there are other people, and they say, where you going to put that? Where you going to put that? So I turned back, and who is it? Stuart Young.
Is that so?
Yes. So I started. I said, "Why am I minding my business?" And he said, "I only like to mind mine."
I'm talking like good old Stuarty.
And so I spoke briefly,
All right, good man. All right, we have also somebody called Debut Rhythm. I don't know what that means. Great morning, guys. Great day and world happy June month. Okay, yes. And RS Productions also came in, says morning, guys.
Okay.
RSRR. I thought it was RRRS.
No, it's RSRR.
It was always RSRR?
Yes. God, you're slow.
No,
It's been that for 30 years.
But we've been saying it wrong all the time then.
You've been saying it wrong, Wendell, not me. Good luck to the people together with you.
But I always thought it was RRRS.
No, it's RSRR.
Okay, so RSRR. All right, okay. So
Yeah.
I now understand the protocol.
Yeah, RSRR.
Yeah.
So of course the play is on this weekend. On Sunday, one show only, Married and Mischievous, is in San Fernando at Sapa. And of course, tickets go on sale at the Sapa box office from today. So you can get tickets in Sapa box office from today, 12 noon to 6 p.m. And of course, at the usual outlets when we're in San Fernando, which will be Key Squared Fashions in C3 Center in Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, and Friends of Marabella by the Roundabout. You can also purchase tickets online, but you'll have to go to Facebook, RSRR Productions Theater on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok to see the methodology in purchasing online, because it'll be via bank transfer. But the information is there. You can just go to any ad and you'll see the information. But tickets are on sale at the box office. The box office opens today. We're still looking forward to coming down south. We always love doing plays in San Fernando. And of course, we particularly enjoyed doing this play, period. And so, of course, as I said before, we had excellent audiences in Queen's Hall. I mean, people came out in droves and droves. As I said, there was traffic around the Savannah to enter St. Anne's Cascade because of the amount of people. Yeah. And so we had a wonderful time over the week. Well, this wasn't this weekend, gone the weekend before. So now we're in San Fernando on Sunday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. One show only.
All right, great, man. Let me also say good morning to Mr. Anthony Joseph. I hope he's listening. He helped me out tremendously over the weekend with a problem that I had at home for the first time in years. So good morning, Mr. Joseph. You know why. You know what you did. Ambrose Black from New York, and of course, Cheryl M.
He picked up the blue pills at the pharmacy for you.
You know Mr. Joseph, don't you?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So you know what he would have done to help me, right?
I can guess.
Okay.
Beyond picking up the blue pills for you, you mean
the white pills he's used. He's
different
used white tablets.
A different type of blue.
Yeah, the different type of blue. Yeah, but because over the weekend was my daughter's birthday. She's with some friends, so it was, the weather was real strange this weekend. This weekend had strange weather.
Well, nothing was stranger than Vibes Cartel pulling out at the last minute from that one Caribbean music concert.
Oh, Lord.
And I mean,
I expected that. I'm sorry to say, but I expected it.
You didn't mention that you expected it before. You're now mentioning it post the fact.
No, but I think I probably didn't know.
No, you did not. You did not. Find it. Bring it to me, please.
Richard, I'm sure, Sir Charles, I'm sure you have better memory than Richard. When I said that is not going to go down well with the Jamaicans, and he is the type of, he might very well pull out. I had said that earlier, Clark.
No, you didn't.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Can you remember anything like that, Sir Charles?
I can't remember him saying that. I can't.
You know when things may have changed in terms of when you came and said he had no problem with the government putting the restrictions. But I know better than that. I
didn't say he had no problem. I said that's what he said.
Right. Well, okay, but that's what it
probably required to say because you want the concert to go on.
And that concert had, but the decor looked good. The stage setting looked real nice, impressive, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean, pulling out at the last minute, I felt pulling out at the last minute was a little unprofessional.
Richard, those things happen all the time in them kind of shows.
If you have an issue, indicate the issue way before, because I'm studying the patrons. The patrons are the ones who are caught, in the loop, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And of course, the concert still went on. So I know because some patrons are wondering whether they'll get a refund or not, but the concert went on. It just didn't have Vibes Cartel in it.
I didn't have Sizzler Kalonji either. Could have carried his own show, could have carried the show, and I was still hoping that at least he came so that people didn't feel cheated.
Yeah.
But then he pulled out too.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I was trying to get in contact with the promoter, but I did send him a message last night, but he didn't answer. Apparently he doesn't answer WhatsApp, so people numbers he doesn't know. But I told him to come on the breakfast show and explain your position, explain what happened. But of course, he's declined because he didn't answer the WhatsApp. One of the other promoters I also contacted, but he was promoting another part of the show, some of the other artists. He answered me. And he said, well, it doesn't make sense. He was telling me, Richard, it doesn't make sense. I come and want to discuss it because I didn't deal with Vibes. He didn't deal with Cartel. It was the other promoter. But I had the other promoter's contact information. So I did reach out to him, but silence. I suppose he just wants to keep quiet at this point, I guess. I don't know. I can't answer.
Well, they would have
I know he didn't answer to me. I was giving him the platform to come on the show this morning and say what happened from your perspective. Because there'll be two sides. Two sides. And producing is not easy. It's not.
No. Well, it can't be, especially when you're putting out all that money.
1.25 million. US dollars.
That's just for the artists. What about all the infrastructure and things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just one.
And the Trinidad artists starting to complain because they're saying, hey, they're telling we take less money. Look at the kind of money they want to pay international artists.
No, but international artists come with an international price, you know.
Yeah, they do. So, and you can't quarrel with that.
Yeah.
That's your price. You could say no.
Yeah.
I can't afford you.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you can say.
Yeah.
If you're bringing down Taylor Swift, you expect Taylor Swift to be cheap. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No, what I don't think that was the argument. I think the argument was, okay, they're bringing down Taylor Swift and it's going to cost $5 million. And then they come to the local artists, they say, how much are they charge to perform on the show? And they say, well, I will take 15,000. And they say, nah, that's too much money. You can't do it for less. You know, I think that is what the artists, local artists, were complaining about.
Is that not normal?
If it's normal,
I don't know. I would imagine it's normal because the drawing card is not the local people. You just want to add them to the cast. The drawing card will be the international artists. I'm just saying, but if a local artist decide, hey, I ain't taking less, well then fine. They're entitled to do that also, you know, to stick with their figure also, you know.
But the bottom line of this is that producing shows are a difficult enterprise, and because you have all sorts of negotiations like that, and that's of course on a different level when you're dealing with international people and having to pay in US.
Yeah.
And especially when the country has foreign exchange problems, which apparently contributed to the issue with Vibes Cartel. Mm-hmm. According to how it came across, it said part of it was the issue of converting some of the remainder of the fee into US. So that was part of the problem, the foreign exchange problem. So I mean, yeah, it's difficult. But I just felt a last minute withdrawal was a tad unprofessional.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't earn you any fans in Trinidad and Tobago when you did that.
True, but
this forex problem is a serious thing to it. I mean, because artists really have to, promoters have to sometimes make alliances with people out of Trinidad and Tobago to get that money, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody want to come here and get paid in Trinidad and Tobago dollars.
Yeah. And not only that, a certain percentage of the money had been paid.
Well, according to reports.
According to reports, which is why the promoter should have come out and discussed the issue with us. But
yeah.
But according to reports, a certain percentage of the money was paid, over 80%. So, you know, it's just unfortunate to all the people who attended the concert. And of course, there were incidents out of that concert, and we could play one of them right now for you.
You know,
so we have to thank Brendan Benoit for that footage. But yeah.
That video disgusted me on so many levels. I don't know. I give up with the TTPS, right? I mean, a lot of people know how I feel about the TTPS. But when I watch that, and I have to agree with Gary Griffith, former Commissioner Gary Griffith, because he posted about it yesterday, that clearly is so much untrained, unprofessionalism, disgusting behavior, and he opined that all of them should have been suspended, and I agree. Right. Because how could you, so nobody else in that group of police officers, because there has to be a senior officer there, right? Can't tell the colleague, hey, cool it. You one man swinging a baton at the guy defenseless. What you and kicking him and nobody else saying anything. Nobody else find I was wrong in that group to stop him and say, hey, cool it. You know, nobody else.
But it's something we can raise with our guest this morning, because today, of course, we're speaking with Garvin Heerah, who was a former executive director of the National Operations Center and a security expert, and who will weigh in on some of those issues. Because we can play that video. I'm sure Garvin probably saw that video, and we could hear what is his statement, how law enforcement is operating in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, he will also weigh in on things like standing ground legislation, firearm accessibility, etc., things like that. So that's our conversation in the next hour. So you can look forward to that. It's the first time that Garvin will be on the program in this iteration of the program. So we're speaking to Garvin Heerah at around 7:15 after the news in the next hour.
Well, I was probably, maybe it's not appropriate to use standing ground to describe a situation in Tobago. I don't know if you all read of that situation in Tobago, where an elderly gentleman, 76 years old, apparently mistakenly went to his neighbor's house, thinking he lives next door. He may have had a little memory lapse. I don't know. They didn't say. But he went to his neighbor's house, and his neighbor shot him, and his neighbor is a police officer. The neighbor shot him, and he is now dead.
In Tobago?
Yeah, you didn't really saw it.
No, but what did neighbor shot him for?
Because they said he was knocking at the door, and the neighbor didn't know. Apparently, the neighbor, sorry. The side of the neighbor, the story side of the neighbor is that he felt that he was being threatened. Okay? And he shot the man. That's it. The story clearly missing parts, because I don't know what threat a 76-year-old man could be posing to you as a young man coming across by you. Right? And well, I don't know if he recognized it was the neighbor. Again, as I said, the story is a bit murky. But guess what?
That needs proper investigation.
Yeah. But guess what? They now try to burn down the policeman's house yesterday. And guess what? That elicited a response from the police in Tobago, saying he condemning the action. He didn't condemn the action of the police officer who shoot the man. He condemned the action of the people who tried to burn down the policeman's house. Both wrong,
Yeah. I didn't know that story at all, Wendell. I'll have to look at that story.
I put it in the chat this morning.
Oh yeah, because I have lots of time this morning to read it. So
the headlines now of the day.
Yes. So I am ahead of you, Sir Charles. I have the papers in my hand. I start with the Daily Express this morning, and of course, yeah, I'm going to my papers this morning, and this guy is playing basketball and sending me the ball. And to come and play basketball, I say, excuse me, I'm busy, but basketball in the middle of the morning, walking down to get my papers. Yeah, catch it. And I say, wait, I'm busy. It's a light ball. I said, I have nothing to do with it. I'm busy.
They're happy to see Richard.
Like, you can see me playing basketball at 5:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
In a rebound.
Somebody would have videotaped it and say Richard finally gone off his rockers.
Anyway, road crash horror. Mom, dad, daughter 9, and friend killed in Claxon Bay accident. That was so horrific. So horrific and so sad and so tragic when I saw that story. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the main story. Passenger 67 dies along South Highway. It's very sad. And there are pictures of the deceased. It's one of those tragic stories that, anyway, that's on the front page. And on the back page, brace for storms. ODPM sounds warning as hurricane season starts. Okay. I don't know. It's like, I don't know how that is a headline on the back page, because, it's either it's going to be a busy hurricane season in terms of the assessment or not, which we hear every year anyway. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the point of that story was. Grand Slam silver, Jareem third overall in Philly long sprint. IF fires Kings Pass Indians to set up IPL final against RCB, and consistent Carty but route turn ensures England's Seal Series win over West Indies. The Newsday for today, front page. Arsonist attacks cops' home. This is the story you're talking about, Wendell. After Tobago man 74 killed in police shooting. No bribes. Patrons angered after artists no show. And the main picture is that of African Rhythms. Wassafoil Performing Company performs for patrons as they enter Queen's Hall for the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago African Fashion Show. So that's the main picture. Very importantly on the front page of the Newsday today, which I cannot let pass, is an ad for something called Married and Mischievous, which is happening in Sapa on San Fernando on Sunday. That's also on the front page, and you have all the information there.
Big story, boy.
On the back page, West Indies unable to uproot England star from Creek's Root Seals ODI series, and ACPOS Pip Chabalate Caledonia veteran retires. On to the Guardian. Zooming through because I know we have to take some calls. On the front page of the Guardian, probe into cartel pay. Finance Minister looks into US $950,000 Forex disbursement after concert pull-up. That I don't understand. Why is the Finance Minister getting involved in that? That's a private contractual arrangement between a promoter and an artist in terms of paying a fee. How does the Finance Ministry get involved in that? I don't understand that.
Yes,
what they want to find out where the US come from?
It doesn't matter. Even if you have, it doesn't matter. However they paid, they paid. And I think they would have had sponsors that maybe would have assisted with that fee. But what is the intrusion of the government so much into this concert?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, it reads, and the point of saying that you can't sing a particular song, it reads a little authoritarian. So watch it. That's what I would say. You know, come on. But anyway, that's the front page. I shouldn't comment. I should just read it. So Finance Minister looks into US $950,000. I don't know how the Finance Minister gets involved in that, but maybe there is a reason they're getting involved. So maybe it will be clearer. Let me post-face it by saying that. Arson attempt on home of couple killed neighbor. That story, that you talked about. 4 killed in Claxon Bay accident. That horrible story. That horrible, horrible, tragic incident. And Carty's 103, just not enough. That's on the back page of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian today. And that's it for our 3 dailies this morning.
All right.
Okay. Very, very quickly before we go to the calls, you know, this whole thing with Mr. Hines. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, that's a story that ended last week.
He said he went to collect a check. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the news, they had a story saying one thing, and you know he was refuting that. You know.
Yeah.
After Mr. Hines spoke, though, there's not been any other further development on that story. So apparently, that's what the story was. The man went to collect a check.
Yeah.
Why he went there and think everybody can ask that question, but that's
Because
what he
when
went
the
for.
story broke, I found it highly unusual that a former minister would enter and ask to see classified. I said that doesn't seem, because Fitzgerald Hines is a seasoned politician who understands what's appropriate and what's inappropriate.
Yeah.
So when I heard that story, I said, well, like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes.
But, you know, I found it puzzling. I mean, but it was a story. But then when he clarified it, he gave a clarification indicating that he went to collect a check. He never got out of his car. The PS came to the car. He handed me a check. He got a sign for it, and he left.
Yeah.
And since that, no one has challenged that part of the story in any
future that story, that version.
Yeah. So that was that. I just raised it because one of the messengers was feeling that we were skirting that issue, you know, and I
No, we're not good.
We tried to get Fitzgerald Hines on the show this morning.
Yes.
Actually, we were asking him to come. Okay, but let's start to take the calls now.
Yeah. All right. Of course, there's some. I put a suggested poll, Richard, and it goes to a lot of what people are commenting on in the chat too. With that gentleman in Tobago, that elderly gentleman in Tobago, because that is what that is people are interpreting that as if stand your ground legislation becomes law, that these are the type of incidents that could happen. You understand? Because the fact that you didn't recognize your 74-year-old neighbor and shot him, you know, I mean, we don't know the circumstances in which it really happened, so we won't comment on it, but we're going to poll it this morning. You understand? So let's take your calls now. 281-1315, 281-1315.
Excellent. Good morning to you, caller.
Good morning, Sir Charles.
Morning, Davide.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to Wendell.
Good
And
morning,
good
Mr.
morning to
Wendell.
Richard. So, this weekend had so much news. I say, well, we had to get 3 hours today. So many things that happened. But first of all, I want to send condolences to the families of those 4 people who were killed. That was such a tragic accident. And after saying that, I just, demerit points come back to my head again, right? The cancellation of those demerit points, huh? All right, so, here, listen, that Vibes cartel, I told my children, that might have never happened. Like, to me, from since after Mr. Wayne Sturge mentioned all kind of restrictions and stuff like that, I thought it was doomed not to come off in true. But
And
I
that
mean,
was exactly my expression
for
on
different
the
reason,
show.
right? So because of contractual arrangements. So, but I tell myself something about this concert not going to happen. And I want to congratulate all those thousands of people who were there, who paid so much money and stayed quiet and cool and did not riot. From whatever hour they're supposed to start and started like after midnight, to go to a concert from say 9 o'clock and you can't start nothing until 12 o'clock past. In other countries, you ain't have a find a table, chair, nothing at all, everything match up, right? So, I mean, I find they were kept their cool except for that lady who came on the stage and started a little thing. But you see me, I will never be in those type of concerts. Not that I don't like some of his music. I cannot go to some of those concerts because you could never tell what could happen, and I mean, I go to a lot of reggae concerts, long time, and they're so cool and they enjoy yourself and so on. But when Vibes Cartel now is a big bacchanal with the minister who started it, I find he started it. Anyway,
okay, no
that
problem.
man who got shot in Tobago finally, the man who they said stand your ground, I didn't say stand your ground, he used like he used it before he come into action, the police officer. That was so different that was so badly for me because you don't even know that who you're shooting at. When I heard the news last night that somebody tried to burn down his house, I saw that policeman condemning the people and so on. Hear me now. Hey, I'm out. I find condemn both, but just don't condemn one alone. You understand? And
Okay. Davide, thanks much.
Wendell on that. So you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Morning to Dean Allen, morning Beauty Culture, Apollinus, Michael Mapp, Wayne Joseph. Good morning to you all for joining. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah. And you would think that somebody who's well trained and has that kind of experience would approach situations different. Hello, good morning, caller.
Morning, crew. What the police shooting somebody illegally or legally have to do with stand your ground? He already have a legal firearm in his possession. Misjudgment, yes, but it have nothing to do with the legislation pertaining to stand your ground.
Well, we know that.
And that's what the double standards you always bring to the public.
We never said it had to do with stand your ground.
Right now.
No, you can't accuse us of double standards. We never said it had anything to do with double standards.
But caller, we never brought that what you were saying there, to the table. So don't put me in that now.
No, but
somebody expresses an opinion. We can't.
Let's take a pause. There is an analogy to stand your ground because there have been stand your ground examples in the United States, particularly I remember a young black guy who went to the wrong house and rang the doorbell and he was killed.
Right.
So there is an analogy in this particular situation, it's a policeman, but the scenario of somebody coming to your house to ring the doorbell or knock on the door and you have no idea whom it might be or what the situation was, and the person is killed, is certainly analogous to situations that have occurred in the United States, the stand your ground legislation. The circumstances of this one is not clear. That's what we can say. Why? Because it's a neighbor. It's a neighbor. But there is a certain analogy there. Let's not pretend. Come on.
All right, call up. Good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Grant.
Yeah, Mr. Wende, Mr. Chad, and Mr. Rabu Basri.
Good morning.
Now, the guy who got killed in Tobago, he's suffering with Alzheimer's, yeah? The daughter said, because I'm reading it. And he's suffering a bad headache and he's gripped with sometimes. But they're using an allergy that the man had something in hand, the policeman say, and he cannot have at 5 o'clock in the morning. Right? Well, the vice capital concept, according to what you say, I know Jamaican because I deal with them up in America and in Canada on the farm. And then people don't stand stupid. Right? I know something will happen with that concept before the minister acted. Because a long time, we used to go, Jackie Wonder, Michael Jackson, and Aretha Franklin, all them used to come down here. They used to get the pay little US money in Globe Theatre and all that thing. And we didn't saw that kind of a canal. Right? Yeah. So there's a different kind of culture going on now.
Yeah, with a different kind of time and a different time of arrangement and all these things now, you know.
The arrangement make it up. And when you come in, you bring people come in and entourage. Because them local bands, I'm talking about them local bands, started stupidness, they will kill all them music man. You know, I come back, I wouldn't call it band, but they song no some people for any hours. And the artists bring about 20-something people by the door, I was by the door, and I asked them, but them is the musicians.
Yeah. I know they used to put plenty of pressure on promoters long with the amount of people they pass in and all that sort of thing. But I mean, the whole thing has changed around, you know, where artists and their handlers and everything are concerned. So it's different. It's real different now. Artists are calling for more.
I remember a launch of Downtown Carnival at Woodford Square. A particular artist asked for parking spots for 14 cars. I said, what? 14 cars? Yes, you have to be crazy.
Which artist is that? Which artist is that, Brendan?
I ain't calling any name.
Is that Marshall?
I ain't calling any name.
If it's Marshall, he deserved the 14 cars.
No, it wasn't Marshall.
Out of place.
I can tell you it wasn't Marshall. You'll be surprised to know who it was.
That's a job.
Yes.
I didn't think that person was like that.
If it's Marshall or the Mighty Sparrow, they wouldn't need that. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Virginia.
Hey, you see the stand your ground laws? Not Trinidad. I'll tell you why too. Also, when you gentlemen say the United States, remember there's several parts of the United States and 2 United States that exist right now. And I'll give you an example of what happened to me. My dog happened to be at the vet one weekend, and so someone was fiddling with my front door, and you know what? I could have been in a situation if I was living in somewhere like New York or California. Even though this is stand your ground, guess what? I still have many legal headaches and I would have had problems. Thankfully, I was in the state of Florida where if I had shot the person, you know who it was? It was my neighbor. He was drunk and he went into the wrong condo. So this stand your ground with Trinidad, forget it. Because we can handle simple things even at the upper levels of government, and far more for the regular citizenship. So I think this stand your ground law is just bad. Anyway, thank you again, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much there, Norfolk, Virginia, on the inside.
Is it that we speak sometimes and people don't hear us or listen? Is that what happening? Or are they listening but not hearing? Because sometimes I read some of these comments and I say, wow, it has to be that they're listening but they're not hearing. Didn't we say that we don't know the facts of the incident in Tobago? We don't know all the facts?
That is
Didn't we
it.
say that?
We said that. We don't know exactly what's going on.
These are ages, man.
Yeah. Good morning to you, caller.
Sir Charles.
Morning.
Well, morning. Richard Agubasi, morning.
Good morning. Morning, Mr. Patrick.
This weekend was an unfortunate weekend, boy. People who died in the accident, they pulling out at the show. You understand? Other things. But what take my mind, I was reading the article where children who want to go out to school, universities, visa, Americans stop all of that. So you know, huh?
The student visa.
Yeah, they stop all of that. So I was reading the article where all of that children are going limbo. So I don't know what's going on with that. But in the end of the day,
Mr. Patrick,
go ahead.
What do you get in your coffee cup in the morning?
why you asking that?
Yeah, why you asking?
Why you asking that? I ain't drink water yet.
You get coffee in your coffee cup?
Wendell, why you asking the man that? He want to know.
No, he had to answer me first.
No, the Tobago issue, what I listened to during the weekend is that the guy went for a walk and like he walked into the wrong house, walking the yard, and he was pulling the door, thinking that was his house because he living next door. The relatives said the man have a memory problem. You understand? Next thing you hear, they say the man runs at the postman with some metal. But you're hearing a different story now because the postman shoot the man from inside the house or outside the house. I don't know.
Well,
right?
Yeah, some of those facts have to come out a little clearer.
Of a young lady in New York somewhere who driving the wrong highway and the owner don't see she.
Yeah, all these things happen. And thanks very much, Mr. Patrick, because you're getting up to our morning poll. These things. People went in wrong apartment, wrong floor, and all kind of thing, and got shot. You know. But I think, given in in a situation like that, with a trained individual, there should be a greater measure of caution, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the Prime Minister, the government has indicated that stand your ground legislation is coming. So, well, Richard changed. I had will you, but you change it to do you. Okay. So do you support it? Because someone in the chat is saying that that's what they campaign on and they got a strong mandate for it. I'm not too sure they got the mandate for that, But let's find out. Yes or no? Do you support stand your ground legislation? That's our question this morning.
You can also call. You can also WhatsApp call or direct call at 281-1315. 281-1315.
Okay. Good morning to you, caller. Hello, good morning. Oh, okay.
All right, so we have 2 votes so far, Richard. Alistair Hart saying no. Child of God, somebody, this person who keep changing up their name, let me not call them mental. Diane Payne says no. Jason Samuel says no. Apollina says no. Wayne Ramsey, no. Michael Mapp, no. Anthony Atwell, yes. Kazim Mohammed, no. Those are our results so far.
Morning to you, caller.
Morning, gentlemen. And no, I don't do that. No.
Okay.
All right.
Captain says no. You
no.
Support it.
Rena Jennings says no. Lennox Francois, no. Gregory Boyer, no. Kathy Ann Townsend, no. Beauty Culture, no. Ava Smith, no. Felix Kazo, no. Carol Guevara, no. Susan Jessup, no. Robert Taylor, no. Far Rockaway, yes. King, yes. Cheryl M, no. And CJ from New York says no. Miguel Gonzalez, no. The votes are coming in fast and furious now. Terrence Roach, no. Joyce Phillip, no. Jason Samuel said I said yes. So what did I say for you? I'm sure I said yes. Okay. So if I had said Jason Samuel no before, change it to yes.
I
Wayne
wouldn't.
Sylvester no. Boy Bidesi yes. Andrew Joseph no. Lincoln Anthony Francis no. Marlon Motley no. Maureen Dilchan Maharaj no. All right. And Robert Taylor said yes. Hey, what are you doing, man? All right. Okay. Robert Taylor said yes.
That's a corrected one, or
Yes,
that's a
that's
new
a correct one. Well, he said I said no. Well, I'm assuming they are saying I said no.
Okay.
Wayne Joseph, no. J97, no. Gillian Dick, no. Micah Ray, no. Robert Harper, no. And the mentally deranged person continues the bullying. Keith Clark says no.
Okay, well, we are at that point for news, so I will give you the WhatsApp after the news, if that's all right with Richard.
Sure.
If you want to keep back the guests, fine. So
the guest is already here?
We can go to our... No, I just said. So at 7 a.m., we go to our 7 a.m. news at this point.
The news you need. The clarity you deserve. Local, regional, global. This is Net Radio News Now.
This is your news update for Monday, June 2nd, 2025. I am Amanda Mitchell with New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says her government is monitoring the potential impact of a directive by US President Donald Trump to temporarily halt all student visa applications, a move that could affect hundreds of aspiring Trinidad and Tobago students. Prime Minister said the Foreign Affairs Ministry is assessing the implications, but noted that expanding the GATE program in response would be difficult due to budgetary constraints. They are a sovereign nation, and all sovereign nations are entitled to put whatever restrictions they want to, she said. The Prime Minister also criticized state board members who have refused to step down, accusing them of trying to eat a food down to the wire by signing off on last-minute contracts. She warned that questionable agreements would be referred to the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau. As he ends his term as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Justice Adrian Saunders has reiterated his belief that Trinidad and Tobago will eventually replace the Privy Council with the CCJ as its final appellate court. He described continued reliance on the Privy Council as unsustainable due to high financial costs and the disconnect between British judges and Caribbean realities. Saunders highlighted that accessibility issues and new UK visa requirements further complicate appeals to the Privy Council for Trinidadians. He countered fears about political interference in the CCJ, emphasizing its strong independence mechanisms and noting that no country that adopted the CCJ has sought to reverse the decision. Dancehall superstar Vybz Kartel abruptly cancelled his much-anticipated appearance at the One Caribbean Music Festival Saturday night, citing the promoter's failure to meet contractual obligations. His management confirmed the decision, noting that despite months of negotiation, the promoter did not fulfill key terms of the performance agreement. The concert had been plagued with controversy, from government-imposed restrictions on Kartel's visit to Defense Minister Wayne Sturge, banning the performance of his track Good Like Jesus. Promoters claimed Kartel was paid $950,000 of his $1.35 million contract, but the final payment couldn't be disbursed due to local financial regulations. Despite the turmoil, the show went on with performances by other artists. 4 people, including a young child, were killed on Saturday night when their vehicle careened off the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway near the Claxton Bay overpass. Among the deceased are Steve Elder, 40, of Canupia, and Kizzy Cato, 38, of Laventil. According to investigators, around 10 p.m., the white Hyundai Creta was reportedly traveling at high speed along the southbound lane when the driver lost control. The vehicle overturned and landed in a wooded area. 1 adult male was rescued in critical condition, and transferred to Point 14 Hospital. Police investigations are ongoing to determine the exact cause of the crash. You are listening to news on New Era TT Radio. In international news, at least 31 Palestinians were killed and more than 150 wounded early Sunday morning in southern Gaza during an incident near a humanitarian aid distribution site backed by Israel and the United States. Witnesses say Israeli forces opened fire on large crowds gathered about 1 kilometer from the aid distribution point near the flag roundabout. They described chaos as people came under fire from tanks, drones, and naval warships. Dr. Marwan Al-Hams, a health ministry official, confirmed that most injuries were gunshot wounds to the head, neck, and chest. However, the Israel Defense Forces released a statement saying it was currently unaware of injuries caused by IDF fire within the humanitarian aid distribution site, adding that the matter is under review. That concludes your news update for today. I'm Amanda Mitchell for New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. The Breakfast Show with Wendell, Richard and Sir Charles continues right after this short break.
That was news now. Stay informed with New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Your mid-morning just got better. Join Sir Charles for the mid-morning mix and mingle, where good music, real talk, health, and family matters come together, and your voice is heard. Whether you're at work, on the go, or just taking a break, this is the perfect mix to keep you engaged, informed, and entertained. The mid-morning mix and mingle, weekdays, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
This summer, give your child skills of a lifetime with several boot camp. Children between the ages of 5 to 17, come enjoy Children Iron Chef Competition. Your child will learn to prepare healthy breakfast, lunch, dinner, CPR, first aid, and conflict management. With field trip, your child will be given free apron and certification upon completion. Call 492-7397 or 336-4935. Institute of Health and Fitness Company Limited, located at number 79 St. Vincent Street, Tunapuna.
Join me, Brother David Muhammad, every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio, Powerful Radio. Join me to hear knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Mornings just got better. You're locked into Net Radio Breakfast Show, fueling your day with the best music and real talk.
Enjoying the morning breeze, watching the day unfold. Jada works is wonderful. It's something to behold. But if you love life as much as I do, put something in the air now. And if you love Jah as much as I do, put something in the air. Let me see your hands up, everybody. Hands up, everybody. Hands up, everybody. Let me see your hands up, everybody. Hands up, everybody. Hands up, everybody. Well then, raise the glass, take a toast, wave your hand from coast to coast. Take out your phone, make a post. Life is the utmost. Raise the glass, take a toast, wave your hand from coast to coast. Take out your phone, make a post. Life is the greatest thing, now sing. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest thing, now sing. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest. Life is the greatest thing, oh yeah. Take a look around you, front and look behind you. Jah works is everywhere. And if you take a look inside you, somewhere deep within you, trust me, He's always there.
Morning vibes, fresh energy. This is the Net Radio Breakfast Show.
Put something in the air now. And if you love Jah as much as I do,
So we are just bordering on 9 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. Welcome inside hour number 2. Of course, this is New Era TT Radio. Yeah, and of course, we welcome you inside this hour. I hope that you have been having a fantastic day because this is your breakfast show. So once again, good morning to you, team. How are you?
San Fernando, we're here. The wait is over. The indisputable #1 comedy of 2025, Married and Mischievous, is in San Fernando for one night only at Sapa. Sunday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. One show only. Tickets available at K Squared Fashion, C3 Center in Brentwood Mall, Fens by the Roundabout in Marabella, and at the Sapa box office 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily from Monday, 2nd of June. Married and Mischievous, one night only at Sapa, Sunday, June 8th. Strictly adults only.
Great news, Caribbean. The Breakfast Show is now on M&E TV, bringing you entertaining conversations, vital information, and influential perspectives throughout Trinidad and Tobago and across the Caribbean region. Catch us on Digicel Channel 20, Flow Channel 111, Amplia Channel 117, Blink Channel 109, Tricode Channel 154, and Airlink Channel 10. The Breakfast Show connects with the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago like never before. We're now on M&E TV.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box. All right, so we are back in the second hour of the breakfast show. And of course, we are continuing with our poll before we get into our guest who is standing by, I believe. Let me get back to our morning poll for this morning, which of course is it this?
Do you support stand your ground legislation?
Yeah, that's our poll this morning. And of course, we will just get through the rest of the votes that would have come in while the news was on and then close off on the poll this morning.
All right, so we have, I think I gave you Keith Clark. I have Pearl Cordis, no. Josie Richardson, no. Margaret Thomas, no. Jared Darlington, yes. Finbar Collins, no. Slick Money Grip, no. Anne Noel, no. And DL says yes. All right, that's the votes we have thus far. I don't know if Sir Charles will have some.
Yeah, so the ones I have on the WhatsApp, Dabity says no, Long Islander says no, Black Pearl says no. Afia Lashley says no, and Luis Diaz says no.
Right,
that's
so
it.
There you have it, Richard.
Yeah.
All right, so our poll this morning,
which is now closed.
Yeah, which is now closed just now. Hold on.
Yeah. So.
All right. Yeah. So do you support stand your ground legislation? That's our poll this morning. We had 51 people voting on the poll in the allotted time, and of the 51 of you voting this morning, 44 of you said no, you do not support stand your ground legislation. 7 of you said yes. So 7 said yes, 44 said no, for a total of 51 people voting on the poll this morning. So in terms of our poll, our microcosmic poll of Trinidad and Tobago sentiment, which is not scientific at all, it's just people wishing to vote, is 44 of you saying no, and 7 of you saying yes. So on the basis of the Power Breakfast Show, the majority of you do not support stand your ground legislation. That's it. All right.
I don't know why people feel having more guns is the answer to our problems. And I really don't know why. I'm amazed at that level of thinking from some people. That having more guns, access to guns, And being able to shoot someone is the answer to our problems. I wish you luck.
All right, well, now we get into our Let's Talk segment with Garvin Heerah, who's backstage. And so this is our Let's Talk on The Breakfast Show.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So good morning, Garvin Heerah, and thanks so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show this morning.
Morning, Richard. Morning, Wendell. It's an Arima morning, I would say.
How are you doing, David? Long time no see or hear from.
Yes, hi, morning.
Good to have you. Good to have you on this absolute best show on radio anywhere in the Eastern Caribbean.
I concur, definitely. I was wondering when I would have been privileged and honored to be invited to this esteemed platform.
Oh, we've been discussing you all weekend, man.
Discussing me?
Discussing you. I like that, dude.
You know, but I suppose, Garvin, in terms of starting the interview straight into the hot water, so to speak, our poll this morning was whether people would support stand your ground legislation, and the vast majority of our listeners and viewers who chose to vote said no, they don't support it. What's your take on it? Because, of course, it's one of those promises on the platform of the current government, and they got a mandate, so they may very well feel that part of that mandate is to institute those laws. And rightfully so. I mean, I can't say it's illogical. So what's your take?
Yeah, my take on it is that I support the initiative, but I have an explanation with that support the initiative. And the reason for that is that we have to understand interpretation of our society. I just want to take you guys back a little bit. When the former Prime Minister and the Minister of Health said that we will be restricting some of the COVID regulations, our reception, what we received and what we interpreted was COVID done. And therefore, we ran into a sort of free fall and parties and connecting and breaking that sort of social distancing and all that. So I think interpretation has a lot to do with it. So stand your ground is not a bad initiative. However, it has to be broken down. It has to be demystified. It has to have a research-led due diligence to ensure its applicability and how we are going to work that. And a clear part of that would be definition. So having the initiative is one thing, presenting it on the campaign and on the platforms is another. Now that the government is in power, rolling it out is where we need to apply some meticulous approaches and clearly look at probably some pilot projects, short, medium, long-term implementation. Permit me, please, because what I'm saying is that there comes with that an understanding of what is my ground, what is my territory, what is my perimeter, what is my space. Because we are still a culture, a people that would erupt in a fight if someone breaks a line in a gas station. So our culture has to be also shifted to understand how we are a gun culture, protecting your territory, protecting your perimeter type of culture. That doesn't happen overnight. With some of the countries, like the Florida legislation 2005, and some of the other countries that have been stated and looked at and researched, they grew over time into a gun culture. What we have is an illegal gun culture. We're talking about a legal gun ownership culture now. The mentality, the mannerism, the behavior, the culture has to also be addressed. So therefore, I would suggest and recommend a very strong public awareness program if this has to be implemented. And the media is going to play, you guys are going to play an important role in rolling it out so the man in the street understand what is stand your ground. If we were to talk, Wendell, team this morning, Rich, what about the child who is on the computer in cyberspace on his personal computer, and he is also being harassed, intimidated, and bullied? What is the interpretation of that space? Do I have rights and regulations to stand my ground, protection, fight back, push back within cyberspace also? So there are a number of spaces that has to be defined and the actions that roll out to those spaces, because bullying is an encroachment into a space. And what is expected now of society, or if you're a victim of bullying. So we have to look at this thing holistically, guys. And I'm hoping that this committee that the Attorney General would have mandated to be formed by the Homeland Security Minister pays specific attention, is probably a construct of subject matter expert that can advise on it, and we can look at how this will be applied to Trinidad and Tobago. If not, we'll have to hold back and make sure that the pieces fit in properly. Because as I said,
I hear you, Garvin, but in that issue of culture, because culture is always very difficult to change, very, very, very difficult. And you have, if you look at the U.S. situation, where you have certain states that have stand your ground legislation, Florida being one. I think Florida was the first. And America, of course, is a gun culture. They have a culture of gun ownership. They have a culture of private gun ownership. It's in their constitution, the right to bear arms. So they had less of a cultural transition to mass gun ownership. They have that already. And Florida, of course, is one of those states that promotes that. They still had problems with stand your ground legislation, and you had very much highlighted media stories that made the media where innocent people were killed because of stand your ground legislation. And that is a culture that is sophisticated in terms of gun ownership, if you want to call it that, because they have the laws. You're now transitioning to a country, and you indicated that culture is going to be part of the problem. How are we going to get past that? It's not going to be a monumental task.
It is an uphill task. And this is why I'm saying that whoever has been tasked to look at the implementation, it is not just creating this legislation, law, or whatever, and then throwing it on the chest of society. It has to be a feel out. It has to be a temperature check. We have to see, is Trinidad and Tobago ready for something like this? And if we are, what are the, how do we shift the atmosphere? How do we shift the narrative, the understanding? And a big one in what we are alluding to, guys, is behavior. A big one is behavior. I further advocated that if you are going to look at this and we are going to apply it on a short, medium, and long term, as I really recommended, then also create the working parts so that it could be used maybe as a CARICOM model, something that we can look at regionally, because it's systemic. We'll be looking at the same type of problem across the region. So it could be localized to see how it works, but if it's something that we want to really assist with regional security, why not look at a model that can be utilized across the region? But we have to look at home first. And you're quite correct. Behavior, culture, capacity. If it is that we intend to look at the short term, which would be to reduce the process of being able to acquire an FUL, and to ensure that can be sped up. So because there are a lot of businessmen, legitimate citizens out there who are still on the waiting list 3, 4, 5 years. If that can be accelerated, however, the due diligence and the vetting and the background checks and the competency checks are also applied, then that is a good start in that we would have had legitimate people who qualify now being able to get their firearms to protect their properties, to protect their spaces. Because we know, Richard, and we've had the discussion, Wendell, about that new beast that has shown its head, extortion and threat. With regard to people taking money by menace, demanding money by menace, and that is a crime that is existing. Some of it says emanating out of prison walls, behind prison walls. I don't know where there's organized crime, people controlling that by some way. What is the ground that I'm standing to protect and push back in the event of something like that? If I am threatened, what about the contractor who just starting out in business and has got a little contractor to do a box drain or something, and then he's approached and he's threatened that he can't conduct any work here, gun in his face, gun in his neck, probably a picture of his family, he has to pass money, stand your ground is still protection of that. How do we apply that into society, into corporate, into public sector? How do we protect, and what is the problem? So I'm saying, and I'm saying it again repeatedly, we have to pay specific attention to definitions. You being a lawyer, understand that, Rich. Defined clauses. People can understand what this means, what that means. Then it has to be demystified and rolled out so the man on the street, the newspaper salesman, the guy selling the bottled water, the ordinary citizen could understand safely what this means and what are their protection limits.
Garvin, yeah, two things. First, I want to agree with Jason Samuel, and maybe we could discuss that a little bit. That there should be mandatory security cameras installed in and around one's home for the criteria to qualify. Because I agree with that. You know why? Because we would have been seeing footage of an elderly man approaching a neighborhood door right now and doing what it's alleged that he did, or what it was. In other words, the vice versa of what the policeman said he was doing, that he was under threat. We would have been seeing footage of that today to figure out that particular case. But here, what I want to ask, and it goes to what you just said earlier. As far as we know, the issuance of an FUL is entirely up to the Commissioner of Police, whomever he or she may be. Is it that the plan is to change that so that someone else or some other committee or something issues those FULs now, as opposed to leaving it up entirely to the Commissioner of Police? Would you think that would work better than what stands now?
Well, I hope you're asking me for an opinion and not asking me for what is an intended decision, because I'm not in the salary range, so to say.
It's an opinion. It's an opinion.
Yeah, I think you're quite correct. I think it should be, yes, the commissioner and maybe or designated senior first divisional officer be also part of some sort of oversight that is able to look at all of the aspects of it, and the sign-off remains with the office of the commissioner and maybe one or two other people. I'm not too sure, and it goes up in that stage for the process to be approved. And I'm in agreement also with Jason's recommendation of the mandatory cameras. That should be that should also be what is known as a box to tick in the process of issuance. It could lean a little bit. I know we will probably talk about that, about policing and actions and police and rules of engagement, because rules of engagement is very important. And even as a private citizen with a legal firearm, you also have to understand part of the rules of engagement. When you draw your weapon, how you draw your weapon, why you draw your weapon, what is threat, what is not threat, those type of things. And there's a legal sort of knowledge base, educational aspect that you have to understand. It's not just going to a firearm dealer and doing shooting your gun and getting a competency certificate. There should be, for instance, some sort of mandatory, I'll say classes, but I say that guardedly, but mandatory sessions, so you understand the law. Because just brandishing your firearm without even aiming it could be considered a charge, depending on the atmosphere and the situation, near a school, around children, that kind of stuff, under the influence. So, we have a lot of boxes to tick, and we have to pay special attention if we are going to accelerate this, if we are going to push hard on FUL issuance. Some of these things, like the CCTV cameras, the rules of engagement, the competency evaluations, have to be considered, reconsidered, restructured, and revisited by this special committee or whatever is being put in place.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because you're talking about all of these hurdles, I'm calling them hurdles, that people have to jump to get a firearms license. It kind of is contra to what the government's position was on the platform, because they were about making firearm accessibility more proficient and more accessible in terms of citizens across the country, because of that same bottleneck that you talked about. And that bottleneck really is because it channels down to one person signing off, the Commissioner of Police.
Yeah.
And well, I personally believe it shouldn't be in the police at all. I believe there should be a separate body that deals with firearm licenses. But the kind of hurdles that you're going to have to jump to get a firearms license, the sense you get from this current government, and because it was part of their platform, is that they want to make it easier. But you're talking about certain controls in terms of rules of engagement. I know currently you have to have a certain amount of range experience. You could correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of getting a firearms license. Is it that you're saying that those systems still need to be rigid and substantial before somebody's granted a license?
I'm saying that because we have to understand. It comes like a common lingo we normally use. We probably use it a couple of times. It's not getting your license doesn't mean that you're a driver. Getting your license now means you have permission to be on the road. You're now learning to drive. You have done your lessons, the hand signals, your reverse, your three-point turn, and you passed your test. You have your license now. But you're learning now by experience because you have your license, you're on the road, and you're getting yourself into real-life situations. Parallel parking, the full works. So getting your FUL is not a guarantee that you are now ready for the exposure outside there. So I'm saying you should be given some simulated scenarios, and a part of that should be maybe the introduction of a National Firearm Oversight Committee. Don't pronounce it doesn't sound too good. But maybe something along those lines, and we could introduce that, have the oversight, because what we're really trying to do, Rich, and the conversation, and I applaud you guys for raising it, is to professionalize and align this action with an international best practice, something that can pass the scrutiny of international oversight, and we could be recognized based on our management, our brand, our governance in Trinidad and Tobago for introducing something that stands the test against that international sort of evaluations. That's because we fix something here. You see, saying it on the platform is one thing. We must not be pressured now, the government that is, to deliver because we said that. So we have 3 months, we have to deliver this, make it happen, and we rush the thing. It must be rolled out, and citizens and Trinidad and society, regardless of how pressured we may be under the fear of crime and fear of criminals and the home invasions that we are still seeing happening and the drive-by shootings, also need to give the government needs to communicate it properly to start with, and to engage and to earn that sort of, give us some time, let's do this thing properly. If we rush, we could get dabbed. And I'm saying,
let me ask this question, Garvin. And I'm asking this for the people who are all for the stand your ground legislation and who are for the issuance of more firearm users license. Do you think then that a change will come if people naturally assume the other person has a firearm? Do you think that might be the change that they are depending on, that people will just naturally assume that other person has a firearm too?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Wendell, because two things are going to happen with that. Two lights are going to go on in the room. Two switches are going to be flicked. One, I'm going to hold back, so I am reserved in my criminality and my thinking and my criminal behavior because that person probably owns a firearm. The other thing is that there's a higher risk now. That person owns a firearm, we could probably go there and get it, depending on how that person produces or presents himself in society. A lot of people, if they don't undergo the proper maturity development with owning the firearm, want to show off to, I have a gun. You understand? And that also carries a legal issue if you are found showing off because you have a gun, could lead you to being charged by the police if it's properly investigated. So you're quite correct, Wendell. It could be a deterrence that I'm not going to rob this house because they own a gun, or let us time this house owner properly because he has a gun and we can now get that gun. So that is what is going to happen. It's going to be a dual threat. And that is why it is important that law enforcement, Homeland Security and Defense combined, and those who are put in place, the decision makers, the strat team, also look at this big one. I don't want us to miss this one. We have to also engage and apply with the same passion and energy movements, mobilization, strategies, tactics for the reduction in crime, for the removal of criminals in the community, and for the restructuring and rebuilding of a positive society that is not one of violence and crime. Because the same energy and passion to push for this stand your ground, push back, fight back, earn a gun, be able to fight back and to shoot back and that type of stuff should be also applied into how can we convert society to stop being as violent and criminally intent as it is. So we did that team, that system.
But isn't that the harder job? Isn't that the harder job?
But it shouldn't be done in isolation. It should be it should be a dual process, as I said. We're going at the stand your ground, but we're also going at fixing and returning society back into some sort of safety and normality in our behavioral patterns. And I said that starts way into the school system coming up, because we're seeing the violence in the schools. We're seeing parents fighting. We're seeing the violence. We're feeling the violence. We're hearing it sometimes in our verbal deliberations and narratives. So we have there's a challenge on the doorstep of those who are going to make this decision, and that challenge needs to be taken in a way that it is properly strategized and one that looks at the do's and don'ts, the consequences, the what ifs. There has to be a sort of theatering, as we used to say in the old days, of this decision, so that you don't.
Is it that the stand your ground legislation and firearm accessibility are both issues that are reflective of governments, and I'm using the word generally, governments and the security agencies' failure to protect us? So it's a kind of abdication of protect yourself because the state can't do it.
It can be reflected that maybe it's because of the failure of certain agencies to protect us, so we now have to protect ourselves. But I don't think we need to look at it in that way. What we have to look at it, however, is in the way of we have our space, and we need to also have the courage. We also need to have that sort of positivity to protect our spaces. Yes, the state is expected to do that. Community protection, society protection, protection of the citizens. But when it comes to your personal space, in the event of the state responding, you also have to have a capability, because the question that I asked in a deliberation, in a conversation is, what if I don't have a licensed firearm, but I have a cutlass, or I have some sort of sharp object or something, and somebody's coming into my home, and I stand the ground and protect my family and my space, but not with a firearm. What are the consequences there? Is that am I still covered and protected by this new legislation? So it also, because not everybody will have a firearm. But there's a higher percentage of you being robbed than getting a firearm. If I'm in my car, for instance, and all I have is probably a nail clipper, and I use it in a certain way, and somebody was trying to rob me, what is going to happen? Am I still protected? So that's why I'm saying it's a clear definition. So it's not a failure as such of the agencies, but it has shown that we have moved. Trinidad is not the same place that it was 5-10 years ago. And the state has to understand that a bigger demand is upon them for the protection, for the safety, and for the security. And a lot of that has to do with breaking walls and building bridges. A lot of that has to do with education. A lot of that has to do with leadership. Because you're so correct. I'm thinking some sort of symposium, talk shops needs to stand up quickly and geographically cover the feedback.
But what risk do we run? Because it seems almost to be a copy of the United States. One, in terms of, there seems to be a lot of copying of the United States security apparatus on the face of it. Homeland security, stand your ground legislation, firearm accessibility. How I don't know how accessible it eventually is going to be, but certainly these are the talking points in terms of security. But United States stands out as the country with one of the most involved shootings of citizens against each other, and mass shootings more than any other developed country on the planet because of gun accessibility.
Active shooters.
So you run those mass shooting incidents that happen in every given month. I think they categorize it as 3 and more or 4 and more is considered a mass shooting. What risk now does a Caribbean country like Trinidad and Tobago, depending on how accessible you make firearms, that you now run the risk now of having more of these kinds of mass shootings? Because we have a country that shows you what happens, and the rest of the world does not follow it. The rest of the world has a lot of controls with regard to guns. And now we are saying, we want to make it easier. And I still maintain it's because the state apparatus is weak in terms of protecting us.
And the question would definitely rise out of that as to, is the state apparatus equipped so as to protect us, as to put layers, for instance, of security with regard to easy access, because as it is now, weapons are easily accessed, but illegal weapons. So now where there might be a legal weapon in a home and somebody could access that and go into an active shooter sort of reaction, be it a love affair going wrong or disgruntled worker, you're quite correct. And that is a high risk, a very high risk. So as we look to pattern behind some of these US systems, we have to also dive deep into what has been some of the issues that arose or showed its head concerning some of these decisions. So I'm hopeful that those who have been so tasked are also looking at the what ifs. That's what I said earlier, and ask some of these key questions so that we could design mechanisms and layers based on the decisions that we are making. What sort of layers of protection are we planning to put in place? Because active shooters now in the US is the type of nightmare you don't want to wake up to, the type of nightmare you don't get. There's alerts on phones and reactions in society now for active shooter, where they lock down a whole community and all of that, especially those that we've been seeing in the schools. So
yeah, because once you open that, because quite frankly, once you open that door, that's it. The door is now open, and
Exactly.
it's very difficult to retreat and bring it back.
Yeah,
So once you open it, it's open.
And I'm saying, if we are going to look at US systems and US models that you rightfully identified, Richard, then we also have to look at the SALW, the Small Arms and Light Weapons Trade, transnational organized crime, where US weapons are making its way here to the shores. Okay, so that's a nice US thing to look at. How can we combat that? How can we push back against that? Because the same corridors that supposed narcotics and contraband and smuggling is being used to leave the region is the same corridor where illegal arms are coming into the region. So that's also a US sort of spotlight that we should be paying attention to and engaging in meaningful conversations with the decision makers of Congress of the US as to how can we join together. We've heard some utterances out of the US Embassy. I think the action needs to be fully multiplied and applied in a greater sense as to how we're going to fight the illegal arms from coming into country. At this point, that's a good way of trying to stop this whole access of illegal weapons in country as it is right now. The gun crimes that we are facing as we move in a similar momentum with regard to access to firearm for legal firearm owners.
All right. But Garvin, I want you to watch this video and then you could give your opinion on it. And you may have seen it, but
I was going to raise this, Richard, as a question, but I'm happy to show you the video. And Garvin, I'm glad Richard, like he was reading my mind, because I was going to refer to the TTPS themselves in terms of the latest, the last two incidents involving TTPS. One, the shooting of the elderly guy in Tobago, that we don't know the actual facts, what happened there, right? And this incident, where it just seems that every time the TTPS move forward 5 steps, they move back 6. Because we would have just interviewed ASP Avril Francis last week, and we heard about the strides in child sex, the successes in children, abuse of children, and so on. And we praise them for it. But then you see videos like this, or you hear stories like the one in Tobago. How can the TTPS expect this population, this battered and bruised population, to trust them?
Yeah, because 2 things come to mind here: training and discretion, and body cams. I know my good friend David West is a strong advocate for mandatory use of the body cams. It not only protects the officer, but also protects the victim and creates the capture of information that can be submissible in court, or at least can be used as part of an investigation. But so we see in the riot police, we're seeing one guy being easily overpowered and outnumbered and continually beaten by the TTPS based on some sort of action, be it the pre-video or what. But what comes to my mind is you'd hear me continue to, when we was in the other place to talk about training, and it's expected that these officers, and I am sure that it is done, where scenario training and simulated training, but when you see the adrenaline pumps and the situation gets into a sort of exchange, sometimes all of that training goes through the door, and that's where the training is supposed to come into the room, where you'll be able to apply. Again, it comes back to rules of engagement and discretion. So I'm saying that that did not look good. As a matter of fact, he was already overpowered. He was already subdued. Part of that action for a large crowd event or something like that, which is normally under what I'll call the oversight and operational management of the VOC, the Venue Operations Command Center, would be holding base for any sort of disturbance or fights or drunken behavior that occurs in the event, where you can remove people from that space, put them there to cool themselves out, and then deal with the matter. That could have gone in a worse scenario, in that one of those batons could have crossed his temple, and we have somebody dead this morning, and police are answering all of the questions. Because the question that is being asked here to the TTPS is, were you under such life-threatening action by the individual that warranted the action that we saw? We understand the adrenaline is pumping. We understand that there would have been misbehavior, hurling of missiles, all of that stuff might have been taking place in the pre-video, but was your life under threat to react in such a way? Because you have to understand of what if, and if that question is posed there, what would have been the actions and the situation that we were facing within society today? So you're quite correct.
Put up in there, Garvin.
Yeah.
Because you know what is my biggest problem with that video and so many other things that you see police involved in, that you know for sure, at least I'm almost certain, there's a voice of reason standing amongst them there, but they're not saying anything. They're not putting a stop to it. That is my biggest problem with it.
Exactly. And but you closed your question with a remarkable statement, Richard, Wendell, which was, how can society trust the TTPS as the gatekeepers when we see things like this? And I think this is what needs to be communicated when the TTPS is having their strategic meetings, their divisional meetings, their ComStat conversations, when they're having those gatherings at all of the levels. What is the brand and the image? How is society receiving us? How are they treating us? Because in some, that's not the only one. We've seen some sort of heavy-powered police actions with vendors, with citizens being pulled out of their car. We've seen it. It pops up ever so often. And of course, there are those who are failing the system by not applying what they have been trained and what they've been taught to do. So my question is that we have to revisit all of these, and that's why it's important. Now, I think part of the strategy, the intentions of the acting commissioner is to do that whole sort of shift. And it starts with the commonality of what we are called to do, to protect and to serve. It comes with the fact that we are the gatekeepers, safety and security, public safety, public security. And therefore, our actions is going to either reflect that we are doing that or reflect that we are not doing that. And if we were to be evaluated by that video, as a member of the TTPS this morning, we would probably get a failing grade. So we have to pay all of those attention, because I always use the analogy, when I used to communicate and train younger officers, younger members of the Defense Force Coast Guard, if a Coast Guard man bad drives somebody on the bus route, it is not ordinary Seaman Smith or Able Seaman Smith or Private John, it's the whole Defense Force that just bad drive that guy on the bus route, And if I was feeling good about the Defense Force that morning and that happened to me, I just flushed all my intentions of bigging up the Defense Force or bigging up the TTPS. So we have to understand that when we are out there in uniform and we are called to perform a duty, an official duty, a task as a state agent, we are carrying the brand of Trinidad and Tobago. We are carrying the brand of Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We're carrying the brand of the Homeland Security Ministry, the government on our shoulders. That is how serious it is. And that is where the application and the training and the re-education of the process. We started by talking about cultural shift. Richard was correct. It's a monumental task. We're talking cultural shift in the TTPS too. Otherwise, we continue to see behavior like that.
I wanted to touch on the topic before. Are you willing to take some calls, by the way?
Of course, yes. I have about. I can only go to the hour though.
All right. Before we take some calls, I just wanted to touch. Before we open up the lines, I just wanted to touch on the issue of deportees, because of course you have deportees coming back into the country from the United States under the Trump administration. Even though this is not new, it's not new. I mean, the Trump administration may be ramping it up, but to be fair, it's not new. We have deportees coming in ever so often. Are you satisfied that the state is dealing with the whole issue of deportees and their return in a manner that meets international security and safety standards?
That's a next interview type of question there, Rich. But we'll deal with it in 2020. The situation is that, yes, we've always had deportees and returning residents and citizens. We've always had that. The thing is, we can't deal with that with reaction and responses. What I've seen is reaction and responses. We've seen some public awareness, and we've talked about putting certain NGOs in place, and but that does not start and stop at an airport interview. The returnees, the deportees that are coming back to Trinidad and Tobago has to be looked at in a short, medium, and long-term effect. We have to understand how we are going to treat with this. We have an opportunity, we have an advantage to look at some of the errors and the mistakes that were made by some societies that were under-resourced. They were not ready, they were rushing into this whole thing, and they made mistakes, and it affected the citizens that were returning. It affected society, and it affected that relationship with law enforcement and also our US counterparts. So I'm saying you get an opportunity here, work on it, look at it, and work with it. I am thankful that there's some sort of oversight that is appearing to apply something, some sort of measurement and management to this whole thing. But maybe it's time to consider the introduction of a national deportee reintegration policy, something that can drive the strategy to treat with this. And outside of that, the form up and the establishment of a national deportee reintegration unit or task force. And I said it, that we have retirees out of the Defense Force, the Armed Forces, the Police Service, and from the Prison Service, the Immigration Service, who still can be part of a national implementation model, something that can work, because we're doing community visitation, we're talking about restructuring the system, assisting with skill sets, medical issues, mental issues, the psychosocial evaluations, all of those things happens with some of these people may be returning criminals. Some of them might be victims of society. Some of them coming back to Trinidad after 30, 40 years and don't know the country that they're coming back to. So we have to be able to apply something that has legs to stand on legislatively, and of course resources to be able to treat it. That's not only first set of deportees, more are going to come back. How ready are we is not to be done also with the level of an NGO or NGOs being tasked to treat with airport interviews. It has to be beyond that, and it has to have capacity, holding base, places where people can be treated. Reintegration is not a buzzword. Reintegration is a process.
Yeah, let's open the lines. 281.
Yeah, you could open up the lines at this point in terms of people joining in the conversation. Of course, the number is 281-1315. 281-1315. You can WhatsApp call us, or you can direct call us at that number, 281-1315. The lines are now open. We're going up to 8 a.m. and we of course are speaking to Garvin Heerah.
Okay, so as the calls come in, Mr. Heerah, good morning to you, Sir Charles here. I would like to ask you a question, because I saw somewhere, I think the police commissioner, I think, or somebody was talking about within recent time, there seems to be an uptick in the persons who are applying for firearm users license in this new dispensation. A lot of females, women, are applying even more than men. What do you think is responsible for that?
I think we're looking at a new. I don't want to sound the wrong way, nor chauvinistic, but we're looking at a new breed of female, one that is exhibiting their courage and their bravery a lot more, and have taken the encouragement of the governance, or the new government, and that whole narrative of protecting yourself and standing your ground. I think it's a good thing that we are seeing more females, because it will also add to that sort of confidence for our female citizens now that they have the they have the availability of new decisions so as to protecting themselves against society. What is more important, however, is can a female be considered a higher risk because that person is a female as compared to that person being a male, and therefore they can be overpowered and their firearms taken from them. So I'm saying, especially for our female gun owners, there should be different applications of training and that readiness and the combative attitude of protection. So that pays. It's not just an FUL owner; it's an FUL owner who's female, and a certain type of training also is applied for that. Those of us who are gun owners understand that, especially for our female gun owners as compared to our male gun owners. So
I actually think the men will be more responsible. I actually feel so.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Go ahead, caller.
Commander Heerah, in terms of the stand your ground legislation, what goes with it, a big part of it is one, when you would have joined the military, and anybody joining the paramilitary as well, you join at 18. That is the minimum age, right?
Correct.
But when you're in those services, you get firearm training at that age. To own a firearm under the current law 1601, you have to be 26 to be a civilian to get a firearm. So there's that lacuna. There's also the lacuna also of people in the household being able to access the firearm. And the method under the current legislation is being a FUEC holder. Do you envisage that with that they will require a look at that in terms of if everyone in the house is not a FUEC under the FUL holder's license, it would mean that in order for the person to be covered by any action, like if the primary FUL holder is incapacitated because of the invasion, it would mean that anybody subsequently using the firearm to defend the household may find themselves in legal jeopardy. And we heard Israel Khan said over the weekend that he does not agree with just the discharge of the firearm in your yard. The person must actually breach your castle. So I'm just saying, if you think that, I'm sure you will be approaching the part of the committee, is that there has to be an overarching look at all the pieces of legislation surrounding firearms. And I agree with you, it's not just a one-stop shop, but it requires careful analysis and implementation for it to be successful and not the chaos that Mr. Stevens and Mr. Rich Ragubasin correctly pointed out. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thanks very much.
Very correct. 10 out of 10 on that for sure. And the term that we understand is due diligence. We have to pay specific and meticulous due diligence to this process.
Mm-hmm. Did he say we portraying chaos, Richard?
No,
that is what he was saying. As you were predicting that chaos can happen if you don't have all the right things. Caller, good morning to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking me and people here for the funeral of one of my colleagues and other issues. But I want to just say to you all, this guy they call Senior Counsel Khan made a very good point. And I want to tell my colleague here, I don't know if he heard him, where he said we don't want we should be sitting where everybody just to get his fire. And because he spoke about that, Israel kind of speak about, we Senior Counsel. He spoke about making somebody come up in a mango tree in a yard to pick fruits and they just come out because they have a firearm, they shoot him down. I think he's made some valid points, Mr. Heerah. And I think that it must be done. They must do checks and balance and make sure the people they're given firearm to are responsible citizens. Not citizens who will just use the firearm and brandish it anyway around the place, right? Mr. Heerah, I remember you, my colleague, good spin bowler in the cricket. Have a pleasant day and always nice logging on to this program. Very interactive, very informative. Thank you very much. God
Thank you, Mr. Billy. He's a former soldier himself,
Yeah, we played cricket for the Defence Force together.
But listen,
he remains quite informed and he's a remarkable gentleman. And I agree with what he is saying. And I've been saying it in a different way, and he talked about the mango tree thing. But I'm bringing it in a closer understanding from man on the street, definition of what is your castle and what is your ground. So how and what am I protecting? That has to be considered, communicated, and we have to do a re-education of society to understand that.
But you know why? You know why? That's not
That is where we're going to have to leave it because it's almost 8 a.m. And that's where we're going to have to leave it, Garvin Heerah. And thanks for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning. I'm sure we're going to have you back because these are going to be ongoing issues. And you know, we appreciate your input and your experience in the field in discussing these issues.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. It's been wonderful. You're doing a great job. Comments to the, full comments to commendation that is to you guys, and continue to have the conversation and continue to raise awareness across the nation and by extension the region. So thanks again, and I look forward to part 2.
Thanks,
all
Mr.
right.
Heerah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Right. Of course, that was long-time spin bowler from the Army, Garvin Heerah. Of course,
you need to give Wendell some class. You need to give Wendell some classes, eh?
Of course, national security expert Garvin Heerah. Thanks for joining us, Garvin. Take care. I was going to make a comment on the issue of the mango tree thing that Israel can raise because those things have happened.
Yeah, Wendell, I am so glad you want to make that statement on the mango tree thing, but you can make it after the news.
The news you need, the clarity you deserve. Local, regional, global. This is Net Radio News Now.
This is your news update for Monday, June 2nd, 2025. I am Amanda Mitchell with New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says her government is monitoring the potential impact of a directive by US President Donald Trump to temporarily halt all student visa applications, a move that could affect hundreds of aspiring Trinidad and Tobago students. Prime Minister said the Foreign Affairs Ministry is assessing the implications, but noted that expanding the GATE program in response would be difficult due to budgetary constraints. They are a sovereign nation, and all sovereign nations are entitled to put whatever restrictions they want to, she said. The Prime Minister also criticized state board members who have refused to step down, accusing them of trying to eat a food down to the wire by signing off on last-minute contracts. She warned that questionable agreements would be referred to the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau. As he ends his term as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Justice Adrian Saunders has reiterated his belief that Trinidad and Tobago will eventually replace the Privy Council with the CCJ as its final appellate court. He described continued reliance on the Privy Council as unsustainable due to high financial costs and the disconnect between British judges and Caribbean realities. Saunders highlighted that accessibility issues and new UK visa requirements further complicate appeals to the Privy Council for Trinidadians. He countered fears about political interference in the CCJ, emphasizing its strong independence mechanisms and noting that no country that adopted the CCJ has sought to reverse the decision. Dancehall superstar Vibes Cartel abruptly cancelled his much-anticipated appearance at the One Caribbean Music Festival Saturday night, citing the promoter's failure to meet contractual obligations. His management confirmed the decision, noting that despite months of negotiation, the promoter did not fulfill key terms of the performance agreement. The concert had been plagued with controversy, from government-imposed restrictions on Cartel's visit to Defense Minister Wayne Sturge, banning the performance of his track Good Like Jesus. Promoters claimed Cartel was paid $950,000 of his $1.35 million contract, but the final payment couldn't be disbursed due to local financial regulations. Despite the turmoil, the show went on with performances by other artists. 4 people, including a young child, were killed on Saturday night when their vehicle careened off the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway near the Claxton Bay overpass. Among the deceased are Steve Elder, 40, of Canupia, and Kizzy Cato, 38, of Laventil. According to investigators, around 10 p.m., the white Hyundai Creta was reportedly traveling at high speed along the southbound lane when the driver lost control. The vehicle overturned and landed in a wooded area. 1 adult male was rescued in critical condition and transferred to Point 14 Hospital. Police investigations are ongoing to determine the exact cause of the crash. You are listening to news on New Era TT Radio. In international news, at least 31 Palestinians were killed and more than 150 wounded early Sunday morning in southern Gaza during an incident near a humanitarian aid distribution site backed by Israel and the United States. Witnesses say Israeli forces opened fire on large crowds gathered about 1 kilometer from the aid distribution point near the flag roundabout. They described chaos as people came under fire from tanks, drones, and naval warships. Dr. Marwan Al-Hams, a health ministry official, confirmed that most injuries were gunshot wounds to the head, neck, and chest. However, the Israel Defense Forces released a statement saying it was currently unaware of injuries caused by IDF fire within the humanitarian aid distribution site, adding that the matter is under review. That concludes your news update for today. I'm Amanda Mitchell for New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. The Breakfast Show with Wendell, Richard and Sir Charles continues right after this short break.
That was news now. Stay informed with New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
San Fernando, we're here. The wait is over. The indisputable #1 comedy of 2025, Married and Mischievous, is in San Fernando for one night only at Sapper. Sunday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m. One show only. Tickets available at K Squared Fashion, C3 Center in Brentwood Mall, Fens by the Roundabout in Marabella, and at the Sapper box office 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily from Monday, 2nd of June. Married and Mischievous, one night only at Sapper, Sunday, June 8th. Strictly adults only. Don't S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for? Great news, Caribbean. The Breakfast Show is now on M&E TV, bringing you entertaining conversations, vital information, and influential perspectives throughout Trinidad and Tobago and across the Caribbean region. Catch us on Digicel Channel 20, Flow Channel 111, Amplia Channel 117, Blink Channel 109, Tricode Channel 154, and Airlink Channel 10. The Breakfast Show connects with the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago like never before. We're now on M&E TV.
Richard, quickly before I forget, right? We have to also follow up on that story about the court, the police stations being used as courthouses, as expressed by the Minister of Homeland Security, because the judiciary would have issued a statement on it. We need to get into that a bit, and we will try to get someone from the court administration to address it this week. I have a contact for someone. So I'm going to try to get them on the line, and maybe they could express some further opinions on it, right? Because they did issue a very strong statement in response to the statement of the Minister of Homeland Security, right? So let me just say good morning to a few folks, including Gary Griffith, who was listening to the interview a while ago, right? Had some strong opinions, of course, as Gary always does, you know. And good morning to my very good friend, former court administrator, Christian Morris Allen. So nice to have you listening to our show. And all the people who would have expressed opinions. A very strong debate was taking place on the chat whilst we were interviewing Garvin Heerah. So thanks so very much for keeping this show alive. You know, people are not going to agree all the time with what people say. So but it's good to have a healthy, respectful debate, and that we most certainly encourage. All right.
Yeah, you were saying something about mango, and you wanted to talk about mango or something like that.
Mango. No, I was saying that the issue of how someone, I mean, is it that Israel cannot raise that issue about somebody coming in your yard to pick mango and you're shooting them? It could get as ridiculous as that, and that's because it has happened. And people seem to forget we have several examples to go by in incidents in the United States that we could certainly use here to tell us, to warn us and alert us as to what could happen, how extreme it could reach. That situation in Tobago, based on all reports, it's an extreme situation. You understand?
Yeah.
We don't want that here.
Yeah, I mean, even though we don't really have the facts of that yet, well, I suppose it's still a developing story.
Yeah.
It'll become clearer in what exactly happened. So because we're hearing different things, so hopefully that story becomes much clearer in terms of how it all played out. And you're right. I think that's a good suggestion by I can't remember who made it. Who made it? Jason Samuel, in terms of having
cameras,
CCTV cameras, as part of you getting a FUL. Is it as part of you getting an FUL?
Well, in terms of the legislation, where people are invading homes and so on, or coming by a home, mistakenly coming by a home, surely there should be a video this morning showing me a 74-year-old man going and pulling at a door and threatening somebody with something. Because
it has to be linked to something like a license, like if you are licensed, because certainly standard ground legislation will apply to all citizens.
Yeah.
And you may be able to defend your home without a gun. Some people may use, but whatever, or cutlass or whatever it is that people may use. In terms of your self-defense of you and your family. Now, there's self-defense legislation in law that exists all nowhere, that you have a right.
When someone comes into your home.
You have a right to defend.
Yeah.
But go on, Sir Charles, you were about to say something.
I was saying, just like when, for example, let us say if Rumbox is applying for a license to open up, there are certain things that the court and other institutions make sure that you have. Yeah. So things like CCTV cameras and so those kinds of things should be mandatory.
They actually don't ask for that, eh?
They don't?
But I can't begin to imagine in this day and age somebody with a business place or home not having CCTV cameras, because it's very affordable.
No, I was talking about if you start in the business and you're going to sell alcohol, they have to come and inspect your place and make sure you have certain things in place, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So these things like that can go into this stand your ground situation, as well as
stand your ground has to be connected to something for which you require a license.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it has to be like an FUL license, because stand your ground legislation would be all inclusive. It doesn't matter. People without firearms, so the stand your ground legislation would apply to you, and not everybody would have CCTV cameras by their homes. But if it is that you're using a firearms license, maybe you could link it to that.
Yeah.
But then it comes back to the situation of you wanted to make firearms licenses more accessible. Now you're creating an additional hurdle for somebody to jump.
Yeah, but it's a necessary hurdle. That one with the CCTV cameras, it's a necessary hurdle. And Sir Charles raised it in the context of a license, a liquor license. They never asked for that, eh? That's not part of getting a liquor license,
I think he was just talking generically.
But when you go there, they will tell you if you're going to store alcohol, you need to have a particular room, it needs to be secure. Those kinds of things. Fire had to come and inspect, customs had to come, that sort of thing.
I'm agreeing with Sir Charles that should also be part of it. That should be part of it.
What you mean, your liquor license?
Yes.
No. Restrictions, some kind of restrictions that you don't just get it and go home, and anything could happen, at that point in time.
Yeah. Anyway, this is where we have to wrap up the breakfast show this morning. It's almost around 8:15. And this is where we sign off. So have a fantastic day. Whatever you do, remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health.
All right, folks, have an absolutely wonderful day. Remember, one life, live it. I'll have to say it, you won't see it anymore. You'll see that symbol behind my head from now on, right?
All right. And people, of course, remember, we continue on www.newerati.radio.com. You can go to our website and you can listen all day, also on TuneIn. You can also take us in all day. And even though you're watching on M&E TV and wherever else, still go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe, right? Because we have to reach 100,000 people, right, Richard?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
This has been The Breakfast Show. Have a great day.
Yeah.